Hey everyone, welcome to Bite Your Tongue, the podcast. Join me, your host, Denise Gorant, as we explore the ins and outs of building healthy relationships with our adult children. Together, we'll speak with experts, share heartfelt stories, and get timely advice, addressing topics that matter most to you. Get ready to dive deep and learn to build and nurture deep connections with our adult children. And of course, when to bite our tongues. So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bite Your Tongue, the podcast. I promised you, my listeners, that we will be bringing you only the best interviews, and today is another one. On our last interview with Dr. Gibson, I shared the joy of welcoming my first grandchild in April. Spending 3 weeks with my daughter and her husband was mostly magical, though there were moments when I felt I may have overstayed my welcome. I have sort of a strong personality. Anyway, during my visit, I came across a compelling article in the Wall Street Journal by Dr. Rachel Glick titled, "What I Tell Mothers Who Feel Rejected by Their Adult Children." While I didn't feel rejected, the article resonated with me, prompting me to invite Dr. Glick to join us on this podcast and for this conversation. She's a relationship specialist. It always seems these relationship specialists, whatever the relationships they are dealing with, are the best guests on this podcast. She's a licensed professional counselor in St. Louis with a doctorate in counseling and a master's in psychology. She's been featured on NBC News, has published articles in the Wall Street Journal, Psychology Today, and CNBC. One producer said, and I love this, Dr. Glick gets to the heart of what we deal with every day, our relationships with ourselves and with others. And remember, Dr. Gibson talked a lot about that too, our relationship with ourselves. And that's what we all need, because of course, each of us at one time or another have stepped over the line with our adult children. So let's get started. Welcome, Dr. Glick. I'm so happy to have you with us. I was so taken by your May article in the Wall Street Journal. There was a headline and then there was a subheading, and it said, "I witness a lot of pain as a therapist, but there is nothing like the sorrow of a mother estranged from her child." And I feel like estrangement can be a lot of things. It doesn't completely mean that your child's just not talking to you. I think mothers and probably fathers feel this pain, even if they're not estranged, as their adult children are setting more boundaries, as they pull away and start their own lives, as some of their life choices are completely different than anything they were raised with. So I don't want to stick completely with estrangement. I want to talk mostly about relationship with estrangement in and out of it. Does that make sense?
I think it's very insightful because the experience is much more on a continuum. There's this sense of rejection, of letting go, of feeling cut off in a certain way. Even if you're close and connected in other ways, you can still have this feeling of loss and of fear that you will lose the connection as well.
I think that's so true. So I want to start with you telling us how you got involved in working in this area. And I want you to share a little bit about your book, because I didn't mention in the intro, and I'd like everyone to know about your new book.
Yes. People start to come to me based on the need, and the need started growing that's how I became a relationship counselor. And that's what the basis of a soulful marriage is, the 4 pillars to thriving in your relationship or healing your relationship. And that was based on the need was there. The couples just were coming. And then a similar trend has been going on in the past 30 years and increasing more recently with adult children and or the parent or both of them needing help to navigate their relationship. I remember being much more careful with my own children as they were becoming grown, and we welcomed their partners into the family because I watched so many ruptures based on how that was handled. I started writing blogs about it. Before I wrote for the Wall Street Journal, I wrote a few things as well in my own personal blog. I go on Fox 2 in St. Louis. And so I was doing several segments and they just got picked up by the algorithms. And I started getting phone calls. This was maybe about 8 years ago, started getting phone calls from people all over the country, even all over the world, like desperate for help with it. It just became a more growing specialty. And there's so much potential for growth that happens in these ruptures. And so it's a passion of mine to help, partly because it's so painful and wanting to help in any way I can with the kind of pain. But I also see it as this gateway for growth that people wouldn't really pursue personal or spiritual growth if it wasn't for this pain they're in.
I think that hits the nail right on the head because I feel that. When I interviewed Lindsay Gibson, she talked a lot about self-awareness, and that's all about you're continuing to grow. You sort of hit your 60s or 70s and you start thinking, I've done it all. But really, you have to continue to develop yourself when you're changing relationships with whoever it is around you, when your husband retires, when your children marry.
Mm.
Everything changes in all of those kinds of ways. So I love this idea of it's a gateway. You feel this pain and you can't just sit on it, you need to work on it. So you said something recently, and this wasn't something I was even going to talk about, but you said when your kids started taking on spouses and people you talk to, and the way things could be ruptured when that starts happening. Tell us what you think are the best ways when your child brings home someone that's going to be their new spouse, welcoming to the family. What are the ways that works and what are the ways that don't work?
It's a very, very sensitive subject because you have to also, not be totally on the side. If you're concerned about something, you also have a place as a parent to maybe share a concern. But generally speaking, you want to start with curiosity and have an awareness that of empathy for what it's like to come into a family. Try to remember what it was like for you if you were one of those in that stage of your life, so that you can really make the person feel welcome. That is the main thing, that you're happy that they're there, you're interested in the person, and that you also respect a gradual shift in that person kind of becoming more important to your child than you are, in terms of, don't assume that because you've always done it this way as a family, you have to factor in now, especially as the partner becomes more part of their lives, where how does that work for them also?
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. My kids tell me I'm too curious. Ask too many questions. But I think the one thing you said that really resonated with me is that person becomes more important in their life than you are. And that's hard as a parent of an adult
It
child.
is. And it's not all or nothing. Like it also, like I was saying at the beginning of this particular question, it also isn't to be so laissez-faire that you don't have conversations about it, but you really want to have those conversations to ask them what they think, how this might look down the road. What is important to you, and how can you see yourself growing with this person?
Right. That's really good.
Are there things in your relationship that you do think you would want to talk about that might be a potential clash in the future? But you want to also be a sounding board, and the more accepting and less judgmental and less influencing we are of them, that we communicate that we trust them to make good decisions, then they tend to feel more comfortable to process with us.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a hard, hard thing to do.
It is extremely hard. And each child is unique. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like my firstborn, just like you have to wait for her to ask, like
Mm-hmm.
it's that.
I'm the same way with my firstborn, but my second one, I can almost say anything.
Exactly. I think that
Yeah.
is kind of common.
All right,
Yeah.
so something you said earlier about the increase in this, and you say in your article that shifts in how we talk about mental health, the widening divides in politics, and culture seem to be inspiring a growing number of young people to drop any relationship they see as toxic. So I'd like you to expand on that and what's toxic.
Yeah. Well, it's like a word that we hear a lot. I
Right.
think that it's not growth promoting. It doesn't, you don't feel validated in the relationship, where you feel that, it's emotionally distressing, and everybody's unique with the level that they can tolerate of that. It can
Mm-hmm.
be like triggering if there's trauma or of messaging you got growing up that made you feel less than or unloved or not right with who you are. Then it also, being in an environment, if any criticism can be received by the adult child as more reminder of shame and feeling less than. And so that becomes a toxic environment. It can be the way that person handles their emotions, the parent. There's a lot of parents who unfortunately have intergenerational trauma, and they have their own kind of harmful ways of trying to cope with their emotions that they are having trouble regulating. And that can come across as very, violence a little strong, but like really loud and boisterous and scary and out of control. That can feel toxic.
Why are we seeing such an increase in this?
I think there's more like anecdotally increases. I don't think the research yet is showing this, but they're working.
Okay.
I think they're going to see it the more the research unfolds. I think the culture of therapy has a lot of pluses, but there's also a shadow side of therapy. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the pluses of therapy is that a lot of adult children are normalized to go to therapy, and they reparent themselves. and they individuate and they differentiate and they start to have somebody hold space for them to, good therapy helps you parent yourself, reparent yourself. But you have somebody who is helping you to understand what it looks like to be treated in a way that feels good and what healthy boundaries are in a relationship and empowering you to make decisions in your life that feel good for you, to be your own unique individual. Whereas a lot of families are trying to still make people be the way you want them to be. That's human nature because we want to have that closeness and you think it's the right thing. And there's a lot of lack of self-awareness. So and I think therapy is a big factor in this that is kind of a tipping point of individuals, adult children in particular, realizing that, okay, there is another way. And I can choose my life. I can choose what feels good for me. I don't have to keep accepting behavior or culture or scenarios that don't serve me well. And then the shadow side is it can go too far, in my opinion. And it makes you more self-focused and not considering the context of how it affects everyone else and the grace and the mercy that we're all on a journey. Sometimes therapy can overemphasize personal pain and overlook the context of the whole system and the humanness and the fragility and the vulnerability of every human being.
I love that because I see that a lot. It's a lot of the me generation. And I think our generation of parenting also contributed to that because we were all about their feelings. And I've said this in other episodes. And I think we're wondering why this is happening, but that's exactly how we parented.
It's so true. So it's a therapy culture is positive, but it has we have more child-centered families now, which has some
Right.
positives, started in the 60s and it's grown, but it makes kids more like self-centered. And I don't mean this judgmental.
No, no,
It's
I know. I
an
know.
affliction we've given them. I remember once when we studied the wisdom of Kabbalah, my husband and I, and that's where we learned a lot of these tools to help kids feel empowered and have a sense of ownership in a young age and respect their parents, not because we need the respect, but because they get their energy from their source. And I remember that there was a jazz concert that my son was going to have that they changed the date, which then became a conflict with an event I was hosting to help other people learn, how to improve their lives. And I felt such a pull. I was being advised by my teacher, my Kabbalah teacher, that no, this is an opportunity to teach that it's not just about them, that they can actually help support you as well. I mean, he was a teenager, but a young teen because I saw how much we can actually teach children selfishness.
Yeah, we really can. I think we've done a
Yeah.
lot of that. So, in your article, I love the story you told about this one mother, Marjorie. I think we all could relate to Marjorie. She was feeling
Yeah.
distant from her son, and suddenly she started doing all these impulsive texts. I didn't sleep last night. I'm really worried about you not talking to me. What did I do that was wrong? Blah, blah, blah. And there's not a mother in the world that hasn't wanted to send those texts. It's
Mm.
the holding back. You talk about strength, and I want to get into this whole place of strength. How do we stop ourselves? We're hurting so bad. Maybe they've said something on the phone that was either hurtful or didn't resonate. You don't want to call back, but you want to say what's going on. But mothers have this kind of, let go too. So
Yeah,
how do we
exactly.
build this
Yes.
strength?
Yes, and it's really about being in two places at the same time. It's a tall order to ask of ourselves as mothers because there's such a deep soul to soul connection that there is an intertwining of self on some level, even more with mothers. Many people report this in lots of different approaches. So, yes, we feel this oneness and deep connection and sense of purpose and as part of who we are. And then all of a sudden we have to start letting go, which is like unthinkable. Like, what do you mean? But one of the things that is helpful is just start even when they're younger, if you can, if you can, to start detaching and have your own sense of self and, catch yourself with how often you're thinking about them or worrying about them or basing your well-being on whether they're okay with you or in general. And so that's kind of a slow trickle. Have other things, other energy you bring into your life that's independent of them. And then from there, I think it's also really important to get support, whether it's in therapy or a spiritual path or friendships or reading or listening to this podcast, that you really start developing more, it can be called emotional maturity, which sounds a little cold, but where you start to expand your capacity to hold pain and embrace pain and be in the discomfort of pain. And because we have two parts of us. We have an ego and we have like a higher part of us you can call the core self or the soul. But the ego is all about instant gratification. If I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm going to fix it now. And that gets us into a lot of trouble. So building and cultivating our capacity, the muscle for sitting with it. I'm uncomfortable right now. I like to focus for me on my body. What is my body feeling? Oh, I feel this sinking inside. Maybe it's shame. Maybe I feel less than, or I'm afraid I'm going to be alone. Like we can go to such irrational places with one like funny ending to a phone call, or like needing to leave early, or it isn't what I expected, or a change in plans from our children because it didn't work for them. And we had this idea of how this whole event was going to go. It can create irrational like trauma almost, or irrational fears and emotional pain. Don't judge yourself for that, but you want to listen to what is it. Be curious, like there's the story and then there's what is the story about.
Well, give me an example.
So something is
Okay.
coming up in my with that just happened. So
Okay.
I have a grandson now, and so it's similar to you. A
You
new
right?
he's 2, so I'm a little bit more
Yeah,
seasoned.
you're much further ahead than I am.
Yes. So we were invited them to come with us to go to a resort town in Michigan for the 4th, and which is unusual that they were able to go. And my daughter and her wife and our grandson are going to come. Now some things have changed in their life, and we're getting little messages that I don't think they're going to come. It's not looking like it's going to support them in their life. It's a small thing, but it can feel like a big thing that can create a lot of problems in relationships when you don't first sit with how that feels. Like I noticed that I felt sad. Like I had this whole vision. I was watching other people at the beach with their families. I had this whole schema and how disappointing that would be for me. So I had to go through the process of taking care of that myself and not centering my feelings and my needs and expectations and putting them on my daughter when she's telling me this, especially not initially. So then I just listened within. It's that self-awareness and that self-soothing. I honored the feeling. I honored that, yeah, that would be disappointing. I also honored the perspective part of me that knows, like, in the scheme of things, this is normal, this is healthy, and this is also probably for the good for you. Maybe it's good for you and my husband to have more time together, or maybe this is also good for me because I'm learning how to be flexible even more, and just having the mindset that I'm looking for, uh, not seeing why this is happening to me, but how this is happening for me.
So
And
moving away from your own ego, really, because your own ego
exactly,
was hurt a little bit.
my
And
ego was
yeah,
hurt.
and I struggle with that a lot. I just think, why aren't they thinking about me? This was really hurtful.
Yes, exactly. And things have changed. Like I know when my kids were born, my mother was like right there, but when my grandson was born, they wanted space.
Yeah.
It's so different. And so I had to deal with all of those feelings. But if I didn't work on the emotional maturity part of myself, and I put my feelings and my needs and I centered myself, I would have pushed them away, and it would have been selfish. It would have been hurtful to them. And then I can't be there when they do need me because they feel unsafe to come close because I'm going to make it about me. So the more we can like hold space for them, and of course, at some point, yes, it's a mutual and you want to share your feelings and needs too.
You do that though. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing. I don't mean to interrupt you, but as you're saying this, and I've had similar situations and I've worked on myself, my emotional maturity. But what I really want to say is get with the program. I'm your mother. Suck it up. I'm not perfect. Remember, you said you were coming. We've put deposits down in the hotel. What are you thinking? I mean, I would
Exactly.
never say that, but there's a part of me that wants to say, what is the problem here? So
Yeah.
when can you start saying a little bit about how you're feeling?
Well, if you're in a rift and you're in a rupture and then not at all,
Never, right?
then
Okay.
there's a lot of like, I always say your adult child is the customer, like even in couples, like,
Everyone says that. I can't believe
yes,
it.
and there's a step-by-step process. It's not forever and it's not all the way all the time. So it's really subtle, these nuances. That's why it's so important to have more people who understand that it's not just your classic family counseling situation. There's so many nuances to this.
So many.
So when there's a strong rupture, and it's similar with a couple, either the partner who's pulling away, just it's not fair. We have to let go of logic and justice. We have to go with just what am I being called to right now for the sake of this relationship and for the sake of my growth? To trust that you're where you need to be. It's a choice you make. It's an axiom to choose to trust that the universe is a friendly place. And that even if I don't like where I am, there's something of benefit for me, and otherwise I wouldn't be here. Something to put it back into balance in myself, in my whole family system, in my lineage. So trying to embrace it and not blame and trying and stop rejecting it, be in the present moment. And then when it comes to holding space for the one who is feeling like they need to pull away, is first of all, as a parent, there's a lot of approaches that appreciate how we always came first. We were always their source. So it's appropriate for us to hold space for them. And when there's a rupture or we're navigating their unique individuality, we really want to overcome our ego's propensity to think that we created them for me. No, we created them for the world.
That's a great line. That's a great line. So, what I'm hearing here, this just came to my mind, you're valuing the relationship over yourself.
Yes, exactly. And their own development and looking at what this could be for your own development. And then you have to repair, like, it depends. If it's like day-to-day stuff and you want to handle it appropriately, you still similar but not as extreme, where you still want to hold space and listen to them first. So tell me
Mhm,
more about what's going on. Yeah, like, yeah, I can see you have so much going on. Tell me what you're thinking. And then
mhm,
let
mhm.
them know that you can hold them in a way that you're not going to make it crowded in the room where they can't share their feelings with you because you're going to be putting yours in the room so loud that they can't even share themselves, or they're going to feel guilty. You want to liberate them to live the life for them, and they paradoxically will want to come closer to you.
Say that one more time.
If you haven't overgiven, that's another side thing. The overgiving is a problem in our society. But if they feel that the genuine sense that you can resist the urge to make yourself the center and make it about you and what you need, and you're not guilting them, and they really feel that you want what's best for their well-being, their unique path, and they feel spacious in that way. They feel safe, that they can really turn to you because you're not going to make it crowded and make too many needs in the room and not their own. Then paradox is they'll feel safe with you and they're gonna come to you more.
Interesting. Okay. You sort of slipped something in there I want to hear more about. Too much giving. I see
Yeah.
that all the time, and I'm
Yes,
guilty.
exactly. So, but I want to get to that in just a moment. But
Okay, okay.
what I want to say is, after a period of time and a shorter scale, if it's a day-to-day interaction, it's a longer scale if you have a rupture, or if there's
Oh.
if you're hearing some grievances, if you're noticing some like little signs of pulling away, then you want to be even more careful.
Mhm.
It becomes a little more one-sided for a while, but then eventually then you can have a more mutual relationship. With my situation with my daughter, it all happened very quickly, but she brought up again that she wasn't sure that she was going to able to come, but there was an opening that I could share a little bit about me because it was in the context of something else because of how much I had missed our grandson because we'd been on a different trip. I was seeing other kids on the beach and I was wanting it to be Leo and so from there it was in like a lighter way, and I said it with like a both and, like, I know you need to do what you need to do, but oh my gosh, there's a part of me that will be so sad if you're not there. And I just,
Right, right.
but it still left room for her to have her own, that's be supported. And then,
Mhm.
if there's something more serious. We've had more serious things come up but first it's still important for me to try, and I'm not perfect at it, but to
Right.
hear her out and make sure she feels fully heard. And
Mhm,
there's lots of
mhm.
tools for doing it. It's a whole thing in its own. And then when you share your own perspective, you want to be careful to share it in a way that doesn't guilt them, that doesn't make them feel responsible for your feelings, but that lets them know that you're a human being too, and this is what it's like for you. And ask them, make a request for what I would like also. Like, would this work? This is what would make me feel good. So there is room for that, but you have to wait your time.
So you just said, I want to get to the giving, but you also just said there's a whole bunch of tools for making them feel heard. Can you share a
Yes.
couple of them?
Well, actually, in my book, I have
Okay.
chapters on this.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to do some more writing on this subject as well. But for
Okay.
now, in a soulful marriage, there's four pillars, and I'm working on four pillars for healing estrangement. But in some of the same pillars will be the case. And in this case, pillar 2 is called growth. And that pillar is about how you use your friction to grow. But to do so, you need to learn how to communicate soulfully, or communicate in a way that creates compassion and healing. So it's a lot about empathy. It's a lot about reflecting back what you've heard. It's a lot about this emotional maturity and self-awareness that you can be with your pain in the one hand and hold space to hear another person's perspective at the same time. And there are tools,
Oof.
specific tools for that. And I lay it out. I go through sample dialogues. It's one of the hardest things to do. It's like climbing Mount Everest, but we're capable of it. We really are. But it takes a tremendous commitment. and you get better at it. I do it in my own marriage. It takes a potential disconnect, heaviness, like unsafe feeling, frustration, powerless feeling into breakthroughs when you can really feel heard and create a safe environment for the deeper, what's the story really about here?
It makes perfect
And I've done
sense.
this with my daughter and with my son, but even more with my daughter. She's a therapist too, so we process.
Oh,
And so we'll go, we'll have these points of friction and we're hearing each other's, but we wait and we like go to coffee and we'll sit down and we take turns. And then eventually we start to see the things we share in common of what we're both working on and what this is, why this is in our life, looking for the meaning, which is the sixth stage of grief. And that's an important one that you look for, where's the growth, where's the meaning.
okay. Can we go to the too
Go
much
to
giving?
giving. So it's kind of similar to when I told you the story about our son and the jazz concert. My inclination was to find somebody else to run the event. I have to be at every single event of my son, or he's not going to feel loved. I didn't want to miss it, of course, either. In that moment, it would have been overgiving.
Can I ask you a question here?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to judge what is that most meaningful experience for them that they really want you there for. And then I think you can make a sacrifice, but it's hard to know what that
Yep.
is. Because maybe at that point you chose to do the event and he's 24 now saying, the thing that hurt me the most was you
Don't
didn't
believe
come
you
to
weren't
my,
there. Yeah,
you
exactly.
weren't there because that I had worked so hard on my flute or whatever it was, and
Yes.
you chose your work over me, and it still haunts me, Mom.
Yes. Well, it is case by case. I'm so glad you asked the question because it depends. I went to everything and my bank of goodwill was pretty high. It was pretty full. But if that happened to have been an exceptionally important event, I would have talked to him about it. And I would find out how important it was to him. If it was really, and I would know if it was really that important, I would have absolutely found somebody else to.
Right.
But in the context of the things, it was a big concert, but it was another big concert out of many.
Right. No, I know. I'm just
So,
thinking about
yes.
not that situation in particular, but I see particularly in our generation of parents with grandkids, with kids, oh, I'll be there. I'll bring you a meal. When do you need me to pick up the grandkid? I'll cancel everything this afternoon so I can be
Right.
there for you. I'll take care of the kids for 5 days a week, totally forgetting about ourselves. That seems like overgiving to me too.
Absolutely.
And what's the repercussion of the overgiving?
Yes. And the overgiving usually starts earlier. We feel we're responsible for our children's happiness. We're not. We're here to create an environment for them to create their own and to teach them cause and effect. I learned this from studying with the Kabbalah Center. This changed our life so much with how we parented. A lot of what we're dealing with in estrangement is really the effect of, first of all, there's a lot of things changing in society at a rapid rate, but also it's the effect of how things were handled, the dynamic at home. So overgiving can be not having them have ownership of helping in the house and seeing that mom and dad are also humans and they need support too, or having them earn, like if they want something extra, then what can they do to earn it? And that things aren't just given to them, that you want to give them the taste of transformation, the taste of putting skin in the game. It's a gift we give them. Because you end up, the paradox is you start to resent the person giving to you when you don't feel that you feel empty inside and you resent, you don't, it's unconscious, but you resent the person giving to you and you think they're not giving you enough when you don't. So our job as parents is to create a sense of ownership. Like, we had our kids like doing laundry early on when we learned this, or, even though we could have afforded to buy their car insurance, we had them work so they could buy their car insurance, working in the summer.
Now we're in it, now we're talking to parents of adult children that may have not done all of this. They messed up the whole thing. We did everything for them. We made sure they were happy. We felt like our happiness was, or their happiness was on our shoulders. We see ourselves continuing this in their adult life, but feeling less and less appreciated.
Yes. Well, it is harder the later stage it in. It's like the fruit is already a bitter piece of fruit, but you still can make change. Families are dynamic, life is dynamic. So you start to make little tweaks. You still need to hear them though. You still need to hold space for them. That doesn't change. But you start to honor yourself and you start to listen first to what would be a good balance for me. What kind of grandmother or grandfather or mother or father-in-law or parent of adult child do I want to be? And what else in my life is important that I might be neglecting? We absolutely hurt ourselves and everyone we want to help and support when we neglect ourselves. So that's why pillar 1 of my book is responsibility. We're responsible for our own happiness and well-being. And pillar 3 is priority, which is prioritizing your relationship. with your spouse. So both of those are relevant with adult children. You can still find your tendency. I do a lot of writing on how much we put the kids first over the marriage, over the and we're the source. And so it's so important to nurture, for everybody's sake, that relationship. So when I was a first early grandmother, I was going above and beyond, and I still like to do that, but we've tweaked it where I don't physically stretch myself like I did before. I was getting sick. I realized that I, in desire to be this amazing grandmother and be so close, I wasn't balancing. And fortunately, my daughter is so supportive and she wants me to take care of myself. And so I tweaked it, like small shifts to change a dynamic, little bits at a time. And sometimes you even need to explain it with reassuring statements, I call them. I have a lot of that in the book about reassuring statements. Like, I want to be here all the time and I want to do all of it, but I realize that it's not good for me. And then I can't show up as well for you that way. Your children don't think you're just like, you don't care, or, I just, this is an important time, kind of golden years with your father and I, or whoever your person is. And so I'm really working to balance if they're noticing a shift.
That's interesting, because even back at the very beginning, when we started talking about taking care of yourself and you're not responsible for your children's happiness, and you're not happy only when they're happy. I mean, you're a professional. I'm a professional. There's a lot of women that raise their children, the children leave, and there isn't much left in their lives. Okay. And I wonder how they can help themselves. It's not that they're weak or what they've done hasn't been marvelous and wonderful, but it feels very empty when the children leave and start developing their own lives. They're in their 60s, their 70s. I get a lot of letters from people like this, and I just don't know what to say or who to refer them to, because I feel their pain.
Yes, yes. It is a direct causality that I see, that mothers who their professional life was raising the children and taking care of the home, there's often a much more difficult transition to being empty nesters. There are exceptions, of course. I'm generalizing.
Right.
I'm showing trends.
Right.
Also really difficult to let go and let them go live their lives. I'm meeting with one woman, she said, but my daughters are my best friends. And I'm like, oh, that's already right there. Oh, not to judge that.
Right.
You start getting attached to the outcome where you're centering your feelings and your needs. We don't realize how much we are bringing children in to think of them to serve us. We want them to serve their lives, their soul, the world, their place in the world. So what I'm doing with this individual, this woman, is slowly working on making lists of things that bring her light, that light her up, that are not about her kids. It doesn't have to be finding a new career. I think she's in her 60s. Where is she not putting energy into her friendships because she's waiting for her daughter? And that's why she's also so upset that she's not wanting to live the lifestyle that she lives, because she's depending on her too much. So I would take small steps to see what is in your life that you can nourish to create more emotional independence for yourself. What lifts you up in terms of the arts, or being in nature, or being with certain people, or what kind of work can you do in the world to add value to the world? That fills us up so much to do that.
What I'm listening to now, and I want to see that I got this right, in both situations, I need to work on finding awareness in myself and understanding myself and letting go of my ego when I'm, talking or interacting with my adult kids. It's going to take the same amount of work for me as it is for someone who devoted their whole lives completely to their kids. Both situations take work, is what I'm trying to say.
They do. They do. And for some, and for lots of reasons, for some, that's harder than others. It could be because you had all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
It could also be that you have bipolar, and so you have a hard time regulating your emotions,
Right.
there's so many factors that come into play. Or there's also, we take the schema of how we were raised, and we have these expectations of how our children, and I believe in teaching children to respect their parents, not again because we need the respect, but because they get energy from their source.
And what does that mean? They get energy from their source.
They are never the ones who came first. We always will be the ones who, even if it's adoption, it was the thought that brought them to us and reared. The respect part is like anything that we appreciate, we get energy from, we get blessing from it, we get good things out of it. And so this is something that is a sensitive thing to talk to with adult children. But to the extent that they can do both at the same time, establish their boundaries, but always with the sense of honoring that their parents gave them life, that whatever their parents gave them, it behooves them to appreciate that and to respect that. It's not like a religious or moral. It's literally about energy flow.
I think
And
I can see that with my own mother. She's gone now. But
how
yeah,
so?
well, I think there were lots of things that bothered me as I became a young adult and an older adult. And with my kids, she loved me and she gave everything she had. And so whatever she was doing, I had to work around a little bit because I honored her. I was grateful. And now that she's gone, I wish I would have done more.
Yes, I hear that so much. In my work with both the parents and the adult children, it's something that I try really aspire to carefully introduce being in those two places at the same time. And sometimes it's a timing thing. They need to have their own space for a while.
Hmm.
It's developmental. They're individuating.
They
But
have to.
yes, but you have to be careful not to have it go on too long because I see a lot of people regret it. They have all these insights later as they evolve, and they so wish they could have had a more of a sense of balance and more closure and peace and forgiveness before they passed. It's just a very careful, sensitive dynamic.
Well, and I think something you said in your article with the change in politics and culture and everything changing so quickly, that's hard for a lot of us. They have a whole different set of rules now for the way you have to operate. And it can
Exactly.
be uncomfortable for them when you step over them and you're with them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important for both sides to be patient because we're learning. I've noticed my daughter soften and she's more educating now versus criticizing. And when it comes to politics and certain views or that are so different, it can be helpful to really try to nourish what you do connect around. We're more complex. We're made up of many parts. We have a tendency, the ego is more black and white in thinking. Duality is something more for people who keep developing and grow spiritually and emotionally. So I always try to encourage people to see if they can kind of compartmentalize a bit and just try to connect around what they can connect around and don't bring up the topics if they can't come to terms.
That
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. You mentioned, and I can't remember exactly in the article how you said it, but you said that some adult children are not as interested in repairing or building the relationship, or how did you say this?
More in punishment, or
Yes,
like,
punishment. That's
yeah,
exactly what you said. What
yeah.
does that mean?
Yes. So for some, there it is. I think they might stay there, but it's stages. Some can't be in touch with you because it's not healthy for me.
Yeah, it's so sad.
It is so sad. And it's sad for everyone because they're hurting too. Even the parent who's unwell and doing terribly harmful things is still hurting, but they don't have the emotional capacity to see that. But when it comes to the punishing part, sometimes it's a stage where you're just so mad. You just want them to hurt because you're hurting. And you just can't believe that they did that to you or said that to you or can't understand you and then often it's a stage. And if people really are capable of continuing to grow, the adult children, then they can start to soften and see that they really are doing the best they can. And we just have to redefine the relationship, restore the relationship in a different kind of dynamic, even if it means a little more space to try to find ways that you can find some kind of connection that honors you as the adult child, but also is considerate of the feelings of the parent.
But I want to add to that, it takes work once again on both sides. The parent can't just sit back and say, I haven't done anything, because there's always takes two to tango.
It does. And a lot of parents are not willing to embrace that self-awareness piece, that self-reflection piece. And they can only see the hurtful behavior of the child. And that's where even when I meet with the parents who can't even have any inroads right now, it's gone too far and they won't even respond to them at all. There's still a lot of work we do together to help them unpack. They just tell me a few things that they think were really innocuous. And it was like, no, that actually, it's a good news. That actually could justify in these days somebody cutting ties with you. So let's
Mhm.
talk about that. And then we work on the most in pillar two, which is growth. Like, well, how is this here to help you grow? And then take it from there.
Yeah, that's so important because whatever age we are, we can continue to grow. And I think sometimes people forget 60, 70, I've done all my growing, but really we have to continue to grow and learn and become self-aware because relationships, life, everything continues to change.
Absolutely. We have everything to gain. And if you have the capacity for it, don't take it for granted every single minute of your life. To self-reflect, to have insight, to have the desire to grow is one of the biggest gifts we've been given.
The
If you
desire to grow. All right, we're going to wrap up. And I think I told you I always ask my guests to leave
Yes.
our listeners with two important things you want them to remember. What would those two things be from you?
The first one is to put energy into seeing what you're experiencing, the difficulty you're experiencing is happening to you, happening for you, not to you. That it's that to look for the benefit in it, to look for it as you're being loved on some level in the world, because this is going to help you grow in some way or bring balance in some way that you may not be able to see right now. And the second thing is I would encourage anyone listening to awaken more self-love and self-compassion for wherever you are, that you're not alone in what you're going through, whether it's this or some other relationship or something else that you feel really stuck in or that you feel really a lot of pain around. The last thing we need when we're going through a hard time is to beat ourselves up and shame all over ourselves. So I would just encourage you to start really working on increasing your kindness to yourself.
Thank you very much. Before we close, I want you to give one more shout out about your book. I know it's about marriage. I think you know so much about relationships. So one quick shout out about your book, the
Yes.
name of it, where they can get it, and that sort of thing.
Yes. So Soulful Marriage.
Okay. You can
and-
show it. You can show the book.
Oh yeah, I have it up here on
Yeah.
the.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's healing your relationship through responsibility, growth, priority, and purpose. I'm finding more and more that this is relevant for all relationships.
Yeah.
For single people, people who are coupled, in your family, your siblings, your work relationships, similar concepts. And you can find it on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes & Noble. I have a website, drrachelglick.com, that shows, I think, 5 different places that you can purchase the book.
Okay, great. I'll put that all in my episode notes. So thank you, Rachel, for taking the time. And I hope you have a great time in Michigan on the water. Enjoy your husband.
Whether they come or not.
Whether they come or not. Okay, take care.
Thank you so much. This has been such a delight.
Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Rachel. It was very informative. Her article, although on estrangement, this covered so much more. And I think the thing I pulled out of it the most was we all really do need to work on taking care of ourselves, finding things in our lives that is not just about our adult children. This is really hard work, guys. But if you're in it for the long run and want to win in this game, I think that's the way to do it. I want to thank Connie Gorant-Fisher, our audio engineer. Write to us at biteyourtonguepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on social media, and we're looking for the next great interview. But remember, sometimes you just have to bite your tongue.